A very warm welcome. I'm Stefan, Götz Leadership Company in Germany, and I truly welcome a lady full of wisdom and leadership competency and knowledge, a thought leader, a CEO and co-founder of Möbius Executive Leadership, ever since 2005, I believe.
That's right.
So thank you for joining this podcast. The episode is about how can we turn uncertainty into opportunity? And it feels like nobody can make sense of what's happening now with the geopolitics, with the markets going crazy. Uh, so, Amy, how can you make sense of that situation? And how can we maybe help shifting perspective to help leaders grow and lead their companies forward?
Yeah, thank you for having me, Stefan, and for framing such a giant question and such an urgent question for our conversation. Maybe I'll just throw out a few threads of how I'm reflecting on the zeitgeist of this time and the extraordinary shifts that we're seeing on a daily basis in the news, and therefore what I think of as the leadership mandate of this moment. So for sure, we are in a time where a lot of unpredictable, seemingly random, but interrelated shifts are happening geopolitically, economically, relationally, culturally. And so one of the jobs I think of a leader is to be able to sense make for people and to give people an orientation in a time that feels very chaotic and chaotic. In a sense, leaders who can help make narrative meaning and guide people to what's most important, what to focus on in a time of incredible information saturation, give people a sense of groundedness and centeredness. But that sense making has to come from the ability to um, posit and explore multiple interpretations of the same situation because the picture has gotten too complex for what my friend Jennifer Garvey Berger might call simple stories. We
Mhm.
can't live in a narrow narrative anymore where one side is right and the other side is wrong, and the answers are sort of obvious based on expertise and experience. We're in a world that's extremely emergent in very high flux. And so the meaning that has to be made is more of an adaptive meaning making. And in adaptive leadership, my friend Xander Grashaw talks about the importance of a leader being able to engage multiple interpretations before they move into problem solving or action.
Absolutely, fully agree, and I like the idea of staying in that realm of multiple interpretations. And my question is like, how can I, as a leader, come to that place, stay grounded in holding that tension that there's not one solution forward and we fix it, but it sounds like it's a creativity space.
Yeah, that's beautiful. It is a creativity space, and the competencies are quite different than what most leaders have matured over the last 2 decades. So, very senior leaders were brought up in a developmental mode of learning how to create followers, learning how to be very declarative and definitive, learning how to say, point a strategy on the horizon and drive collective action. Um, this is a time of collective intelligence before collective action, which is to say, there's a stage of leader as facilitator, or my friend Nicholas Johnny likes to call it leader as healer, where your real task is to, exactly as you said, is to widen your cup to host multiple voices, to be more curious than certain, to be willing to be open to persuasion and to have the change agility, the cognitive agility to iterate and change your mind. And that actually the ability to dance with life, with new information, with new trends, with new events, and to respond in real time in creative ways, in generative ways, that's going to be the art of the deal now.
Now, Now, if I was like one of these leaders now, being brought up or were brought up in that kind of framework,
Yes.
by what we just shared, I would be freaking out because I don't get this. I get this clarity and the sense making, and then fixing it. So, I mean, what kind of capacity is the first door opener for me to engage with such a situation? What would you see as the capacity necessary?
It's a beautiful question. I would say I see two different responses from the leaders that come into my programs. One are the people who are appropriately freaking out because they understand they need to change their operating system, and
Mhm.
they come in with a kind of willingness and humility to be guided to the new. And I'll say something about what I think that looks like in a moment. And the other are those that who in their fear are doubling down on the existing strategy and hoping the change will not last very long. And I think
Yeah,
of
good
that.
idea.
I think there's a corollary to, alcoholics have to hit a certain bottom before they ask for help. I think it's going to be the same for those leaders. Uh, but in any event, your question is a beautiful one. What's the first step? I think the first step is understanding that you're scared and that you don't know, and being willing to be guided. And then what's the guidance? The first part of the guidance is to move the locus of attention, which has historically been on external events, external trends, and external opportunities, to move that gaze internal. Because there's real inner development, what's now called vertical development work that's required to run an organization or run a country or run a movement in this time. And that inner work is maturing soul qualities that are necessary in a time of chaos, that are much less necessary in simpler times, if there were even ever simpler times. So, what do I mean by soul maturity? I mean qualities, for example, of intellectual humility. I mean qualities of deep emotional intelligence, like I understand what I'm feeling. I know how to host and hold my own inner emotions, and I know how to receive and empathize with and be alert to what might be going on in your emotional landscape. Why does that matter? It matters because when people are in a higher state of fear, they cling to the old as a place of safety and security and certainty, and they're less willing to experiment and less able to adapt. So the ceiling on an organization's rate of change, or the amount of disequilibrium that that system or team can tolerate, is their ability to metabolize and host and integrate fear. So I don't think we can disaggregate anymore the inner competencies of
Yeah.
emotional self-management from the outer competencies of leading and change.